Good evening. I'm Amber Kallis. I'll be presenting my persuasive speech, and my topic tonight are the pros and cons of breastfeeding versus bottle feeding. So there's pros in both categories. We'll start with breastfeeding, mostly because I'm personally doing that with my newborn. And in breastfeeding, the most important thing is that the baby's getting natural goodness. You could say they're getting the perfect amount of calcium, they're getting all the developmental things they need for their brain, and they're getting the perfect amount and mix. Also, you get really good bonding with you and the baby. Me and my baby are constantly together doing it, so it's kind of nice. Also, it can prevent SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome, which I know every parent kind of worries about when it's their first baby to their third baby. You just kind of have a little fear about it. The breastfeeding is more digestible. There's less like constipation and diarrhea, which is really nice. And burping is less needed. And one awesome thing for the mothers is that you lose over 250 calories daily. So when you're trying to lose that extra baby weight, that definitely helps to jumpstart it. You don't have to worry about measuring bottles or mixing formula or sterilizing bottles. You know, in the middle of the night when the baby wants feedings, that definitely saves time for crying instead of getting up and going to measure out formula and water, then heating it. So that's a really good benefit for breastfeeding. And also the temperature is always just right. One of the number one things that is the best thing about breastfeeding is that it's free. Formula is so expensive, and we all need a little extra money in our pocket, so breastfeeding is totally free. You can also freeze it and use it for later dates. So there are some cons too with that. I would say the biggest one that I've seen or heard about would be embarrassment in public, like when you're out eating and the baby gets hungry, you gotta either go to the bathroom or, you know, go to the car to feed the baby. Also, you don't really get that much alone time. The baby definitely is always hungry, so it takes a lot of that time away from you. It's kind of hard to get back to work too, because then you got to worry about pumping, saving, and making sure when you're at work you're able to pump that milk and then put it in a safe place until you go home. So if you're a working mother trying to get back to work, it definitely is a lot harder to still breastfeed. Also, breastfeeding is really exhausting. You know, you just think you're sitting there holding the baby feeding. It's very tiring for the mother. It's taking a lot out of your body even though you're not doing much. It can be a little bit painful at first. A lot of women stop breastfeeding because the pain in their areola area becomes inflamed, cracked, dry, even can have blood drawn. So once the baby gets a good latch, then things should be smooth sailing from there. Also, drinking is probably out of the question. You're recommended by your doctor you can have 1 glass of wine or beer, but you definitely have to watch what you're eating and drinking. So if your baby's fussy or having stomach problems, then it's probably related to something you're eating. So you have to definitely keep an eye on the things that you're taking into your own body, because they're getting everything that you're getting. So those are the pros and cons of breastfeeding. So now to bottle feeding, which is on this side. We'll start with the positive, because you know there are some good things about bottle feeding. Anyone can do it. So if you have babysitters over, you don't have to worry about, you know, showing them how to heat up the breast milk and all that. The baby can feed with, you know, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas. Anyone can feed the baby, so that's one nice thing about it. It's easy to take on the go, so when you guys are at the restaurant and the baby's hungry, just pull out the bottle, there you go. Also makes going back to work easier. Pretty much when you're on the go, bottle feeding is the way to go. So those are my positives. I think that personally there's a lot more cons because as a mother myself, I breastfeed. So some of the negatives that I saw were the money. In 1 month alone, a formula can cost over $150 easily. So that's over $1,200 a month. Sometimes up to $1,500, sometimes over $2,000, depending on what kind of formula there is. And because there's so many, you really kind of have to play a game figuring out which one works best with your baby. There's, you know, soy-based formula, there's powder-based formula, there's pre-mix that has to be refrigerated. So it can be kind of tough figuring out which formula works better for certain babies. It can cause a lot of constipation and diarrhea, so that's when you again have to switch it up and figure out which one works better. Scientists have been working really hard to match formula with breastfeeding, the same nutrition, but it's not as healthy as breastfeeding. Like they're not getting everything that is recommended, like for brain development or eye development. They're not getting the full factors of what breast milk is giving, but scientists are working really really hard to make it as close as possible to breastfeeding. Also, bottles, nipples, bottle scrubbers. Those can be pretty expensive too, and they range. There's glass ones, plastic ones, big ones, small ones. They come in all shapes and sizes. But those can get pretty pricey too. Also, you gotta have a bottle bag with an ice pack. You gotta, you know, be prepared when you're gonna be bottle feeding. Also, the nipples on the bottles, they come in slow, fast, and medium. Depending on how old the baby is, you have to remember to change the bottle, the nipples that go on the bottle, because you don't want to give a newborn a fast nipple. They'll be choking and gagging how fast the formula comes out. It can get kind of messy too. It can be sticky. So that's pretty much my presentation about the pros and cons of bottle feeding, breastfeeding. So for my advice, I would say breastfeed as long as you can. They say that the first 4 months are the most important. So if you can, try to breastfeed until then. But also to new mothers, don't ever stress it, because you just want to make sure your baby's happy and healthy. And if they don't take to the breast or to the bottle, you know, just use what works for you.